Hoi hoi folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Sean, aka Uncle Frogface, and welcome to today's video. If you're new here, then welcome. If you're not new, then welcome back. If you listen closely, you might be able to hear the sound of school children screaming in the background. It's break time. So perfect time to record, why not? So today we are going to be doing another miniature master study. So this is, if you haven't seen them before, it's where I replicate a masterpiece on a tiny teeny weeny canvas. And today's suggestion actually comes from one of you YouTube subscribers. So if you aren't subscribed, now's a good time to do that. I take suggestions from you guys here and on Instagram and on Twitter. So this is from Replicana, who gave me several suggestions of some Finnish masters to have a look at. So I'm going to turn the camera around and we'll get straight into it. So as always, here we are with our tiny canvas. So just to give you the measurements, this is 5 centimeters by 7 centimeters, or if you're still using Imperial, 2 inches by 3 inches. So tiny canvases, and I got these really cheap on eBay. This is my proportional measuring device and just a standard colouring pencil, which I probably chose a different colour than blue. But this is the painting that we are going to be attempting to replicate today. So this is from Finnish artist Helene Schjerbeck, and this is called Portrait of Gota. So I had never heard of this painting, I'd never heard of this artist before, but when Replicana recommended those artists, I had to go through and have a look, and this particular painting just really kind of stood out to me. So I've got my picture on my iPad set up to the same proportions as the canvas that I have using my proportional measuring device. So I've gone through that in other videos. There's a playlist for all of these miniature master studies that you can go and check out in your own time. But this is what we do every time. We start off by using our proportional measuring device and just getting a rough sketch so that we've got something to follow. So we're trying to be as accurate as we can with these pictures. And as I said, I think I definitely should have used something other than a blue pencil here. These are very quick to do, and they dry very quickly, which means sometimes you can still see the drawings through at the end. But I mean, I'll let you judge at the end whether it was a mistake or whether it just added to the artistic license of the piece. But all we're doing here is going through, and so we measure point to point, so all of these kind of little reference points, and it just means that we can do a nice accurate sketch of the main study. So once we've got that all finished, this is the little drawing that we've got. We can put the iPad to the side. Thank you, iPad. And we can put those tools to the side as well. And then we get out our paint brushes. So loads of small paint brushes and a really old beat up palette. So one of the things that I love about these paintings is they are so economical on paint. You can see those tiny dots that I've got there on my palette were still too much for this painting, but they're the smallest dots I could get on the palette. So all I'm going to do now is just go in and just fill in all of the spaces with the colours. So the idea of doing a master study is that you learn something either about the artist or their technique, or about your own technique, and take away something that you can then apply to your own artwork. So what I took away from this painting is that Alan seems to use very blocky colour. So I had a little bit of a look at her history, and you know, she lived through the war and she did a lot of self-portraits, and they become more and more abstract as she gets older, until I think the final one, it almost looks like a skull. It's fascinating to look at. Definitely recommend having a look at some of her other paintings as well. But she loved painting just your everyday people, but as if they were fashion models, in this very kind of French neoclassical but very modern style. So very neoclassical colours but very modern depictions. And I really love how blocky all of these pictures were, so you could really see how she'd thought about where she was going to place the colours in a very structural way, almost like a sculpture. which I really responded well to. So I'm definitely going to take that away from this picture. One thing I will say about working this small is it is so difficult to colour match. And that's because when you're working on a large painting, you've got quite a large volume of paints. You're typically mixing up a large batch of a colour. And that means that you can add small amounts and adjust the colour one way or another, make it a bit lighter, a bit darker, add a bit of an extra hue. When you're working this small, the smallest little dot of colour can really change the way it looks. And it's always different on the palette and on the canvas as well, but it can really shift dramatically one way or another. So I think mine is maybe a little bit more saturated than the original, but I'm happy with that. These are so small, I'm never going to get them completely accurate. So this is my take on these paintings, but in a kind of master study style. So you can see we've kind of got this yellowish skin tone, then there's a very pinkish skin tone, then there's more of a kind of an ochre-y tone, there's a little bit of blue and green in there as well. And this is how Ellen seems to have built her pictures, in these kind of, it's almost like doing collage, you get these little sections and then you block in the colours. I really, really like it. I think I'm going to experiment with that style, maybe digitally, and see what I can do. So I'm just coming in and darkening some of the hair now, and this is with almost completely black with just a little bit of blue. I don't like using flat black in paintings, but some artists do use black. But this is a very, very dark blue. And I'm coming in and just lightening up some of that skin, taking away some of the saturation because it was a little bit yellow. So as I said, this was recommended by one of my YouTube subscribers, and I do always look at the comments and try to respond to as many as I can. So it's always nice to have a little bit of a conversation down there. We talked about some pretty random things on some of my videos. But yes, I'll also leave links down below for my Twitter and my Instagram, and also links to Amazon if you want to buy my books, because I also work as an author. And feel free to suggest anything on there, either art challenges that you'd like me to do, or some masters that you'd like me to study, or even just individual paintings. Open to all of those kind of suggestions. So this painting has just a little pop of colour on the lips and in the hair. So I'm just popping in these lips here. Again, my paintbrushes, as small as they are still too big for these kinds of paintings. I promise I will invest in some new tiny paintbrushes at some point, but Andrew and I are currently in the process of buying a house in Wales, so all of our money is tied up at the moment with that. But once we're all settled in, and I'll have a nice office studio, which obviously you'll all get to see, but then I'll have a little bit of extra money to be able to invest in some new art supplies. So I'm just coming in now with as fine as I can and just adding some of these details. So there are just a little bit of line work on these pictures, so it's not very detailed or heavy line work, it's actually quite loose. But I'm just coming in and laying all of that in, so it's just in some certain areas. So you can see we've got it on the top of the shirt there, just a little bit of the neck, and some of it is just left blank, and I think that helps the figure merge with the background. It doesn't look too much like a cartoon then, but there certainly is an illustrative quality to this style that Ellen has. I'm just coming in and fixing those eyes there. And again, just trying to get some of this blend between the colours working a bit nicer. There are some white highlights as well, so we're just popping those in. And again, fixing those eyes, get it more accurate to the original. This whole piece took in total less than 30 minutes. So I don't usually do this, but there was a very prominent signature in the bottom corner, so I thought I'd pop that in as well with a dotting tool. Now I'm just fixing this hairline to bring the forehead up a little bit more, and I think we're about done. And there we are. So after a little bit of time drying, this is what we are left with. And this is smaller than a post-it note, just for some, you know, oh, it's ridiculous. These are so tiny, but they're so much fun to do. So thank you, Replicana, for this suggestion of this artist. I really enjoyed this. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, then big thumbs up for you. Why don't you drop a comment down below with a suggestion of an artist or just a painting you'd like me to replicate in miniature, teeny tiny form. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video, and until next time, goodbye.